Hello, everybody. We are now live here on the Zodcast. I'll let the signal go out so some more people can join us. There's already a ton of people in the chat, more than I've seen in a long time, because people are really excited for the show. Of course, my guest is Ross Geraci. I'm saying your name right? It's Geraci. That's how I always said it, right?
Yeah, it's Geraci, but I'm getting an echo.
Geraci. Okay.
Are you getting that double track on the
No.
audio? You're not getting it? All right. Let me just re-add me. Let's see if I can get rid of this echo. Just give me 1 sec, Drew.
Let me try this. How does it sound now?
How about now? Now, I think we might be good. Sorry about that.
You still getting the echo? You still have the echo?
I think I might still be getting the delay. Let me see.
Huh.
Yeah, I have a delay. All right, here. Just totally drop me, re-add me. It should go away.
Oh, come back on. Wait for Ross to jump back on. Get rid of that echo. Okay, now try it.
I think we're good now, folks.
You hear that? No more delay?
No, we're good to go. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay.
So that trick works, just getting off and getting back on.
Yeah, it does work. We've had it several times on mine, unfortunately.
Cool. We'll restart now. So
back to
Ross Geraci, my good friend from Planet X Filmworks. Of course, we're going to be talking about the Domingos Edwards murders of 1962. And I'm going to have you run through the quick version of it. And, of course, this is what we call a non-canonical Zodiac crime, something that Ross has always taken a big interest in. And he's my go-to guy for the non-canonical Zodiac crimes. Of course, there's a few of them. I'll put this slide up just to show some of them. Of course, the one we're going to talk about tonight, which was the 1962 murders of Robert Domingos and Linda Edwards. Of course, that was a couple. Kathleen Johns, as I know a lot of you guys know these non-canonical Zodiac crimes well. Of course, the most famous of them all, Sherry Jo Bates, murder on Halloween Eve of 1966, and Donald Lass abduction and murder that happened. I don't even remember the year Donald Lass now, but I think that was in the 70s, early 70s. And of course, we also talked about a little bit earlier, Ray Davis, a cab driver that was murdered in Oceanside, California. And these are non-canonical crimes. The canonical Zodiac crimes are, of course, Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs Park, Lake Berryessa, and then the final being the Paul Stein attack in October of 69. So first of all, happy birthday, man. I think your birthday was Friday, right?
Yes, sir. The 21st, summer solstice.
All right. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
everybody wish Ross a happy birthday. And if you have not seen his video on the case we're going to discuss tonight, it's over on his channel, Planet X Filmworks. The link to the video is in the description of this video. So after this, definitely go check that out if you have not done so already, and sub Ross's channel if you have not already done so. So go ahead, Ross, and just give us the Cliff Notes version of the murders of Bobby Edwards and Linda Edwards back in 1962.
Yeah, it's actually 63, Drew.
Wait, hold on, Ross.
Okay, there I'm back. So yeah, this one's actually 63.
So that was 63. Okay, I was thinking Davis is 62, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So
okay, 63. My bad.
1 year before the swindles. It's kind of 3 years before the Riverside activity. Drew and I really never say. Well, before I even start off, when people start with the Zodiac story and they say, "Hey, let's talk about the Zodiac crimes." So in 1966, Sherry Jo Bates, you know what I mean? Like that's the absolute worst way to start. Just start with the canonicals. And much like this case, Robert Domingos and Linda Edwards, 1963, Santa Barbara. It's kind of an interesting one because it's kind of like halfway between Northern California, the Bay Area, where the canonicals take place, and then these pre-Z crimes, as I call them, or non-canonicals, as Drew calls them, Southern California, which are like Riverside to San Diego, south of Los Angeles, this Gaviota Beach. It's like, I mean, it's kind of, I guess you would call it like northern Los Angeles County, but it's farther enough to almost be like right halfway to the Bay Area, which is interesting.
Is that still Central Coast? Like,
yeah, exactly.
San Luis Obispo,
much,
and that whole area.
Yep, correct. Yep. So yeah, it's like and Goleta Beach. It's kind of like the Santa Barbara, Goleta, Gaviota Beach area, and I'm going to cover more of the geography stuff too when we talk about Sandy and just the Vern Smith murder and all that stuff, because, you know, like we're going to talk about with these sniper attacks, I think it really establishes that someone was down there either in the shack or stalking the beach. And if you believe that's Sandy, then you believe the dude traveled like 200 miles in a span of like 24 hours. You know what I mean? So that kid didn't even have a car. It's just highly unlikely that someone on foot would be going back. And I'll tell Drew about how the roads look and the whole canyon and all that stuff. Just
and you've been up there, and your video has some beautiful shots of it. So take us back to 1963. It was a senior skip day at Lompoc High School.
Yep, North
High School Sweethearts.
Yep. So it was June 4th, and then it was like an unofficial senior skip day where everybody in the class was going down to Goleta Beach. And so I guess that was their original plan. When I say there, obviously Domingos and Edwards, Bobby and Linda, that was their original plan. She had called a friend to come with them. So I think it would have been like a lot more interesting if 4 people were there instead of 2. I think probably it would have been avoided that day, and it would have never happened.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was going to be maybe a foursome.
Her best friend and her best friend and her boyfriend, and he could not go because he had to work, I guess. So like it ends up being the 2 of them. You know, we all know what happened, but for sake of summarizing, so they the landscape has changed, obviously. So Bobby parked like kind of on that, like what me and Drew would call like a median. It was like a little like off, you know, turnout, like another turnout, much like, you know, Lake Herman or any of that stuff. It was just in the middle of a major highway. So he parked on that turnout. They come down the hillside down to this canyon. That's called, like, you'll see like 1,000 names for this place, Drew. You've probably seen them on Richard Grinnell's article. But so the actual location is this peninsula called Canada del Molino. You know, you really don't ever see anyone say that name.
Yeah, I didn't. I had never seen it till I read some of Richard Grinnell's recent articles that Drewser pointed out and gave to me. So shout out to Drewser for sending those, and also Richard Grinnell of ZodiacCiphers.com. If you, definitely you want some deep reading on this stuff, go check that out, as well as Ross's video.
Yeah, so Richard has several. What I have linked under my video is this original article, and then the other one I know Drew and I have talked about him is the Quester Files. He has a article on Domingos Edwards Gaviota that I actually love, because he created a map and he took still shots with his cameras and linked it to YouTube videos. So you can go on his little map.
Yeah, he's got great stuff. If you want to see, he has some of the best reading on Zodiac. I love it.
One of the most dynamic things I've seen in my career in the case, and you could click like, hey, what does this angle look like? And you'll literally click the photograph he took of the angle or the video of them. And I believe it was with either Leo or Lee that went with them. So you can actually kind of hear them in the background talking about the case. Make a long story long, Drew. I assume that's why you have me. I had actually reached out to him to see if we could get him when we went down there, you know, because he's the one who led Officer Schultz down there. So it would have been nice to have a first person account. There really isn't one. So when Bobby and Linda get down there, there's what is known as like the George Gill shack. It's off. There's the creek bed, and then there's this old shack that transients used to live in that he built that just kind of sit there. You know what I mean? You know, JB Averett knew about this. All the Lompoc High kids who went down to this beach had known about this shack. Yeah. It wasn't like a secret like thing. It was just like a lean-to of what Drew said.
Yeah, there's a picture of a lean-to. This isn't the actual one. I think Richard had a picture of one. I thought I had it up here, but it was from the newspaper. But this is obviously a nicer one, but I think they did always describe it as a lean-to.
Yeah. It was the size of 2 porta potties. Essentially, we don't know what happens, but when you look at that location, so there's the highway, the train tracks, the hillside. You follow the trail down. It took me, Gabe, and Brian forever to get down there because we got lost, which was a fun story. Took out the drone and we're taking aerials. Eventually found our way down there much later. I got a mean sunburn, as you can see from the day 2 shoot in the Vern Smith story. And when they get down there, they're basically like, they have their stuff for the beach, the swimming trunks, the blanket. So they're obviously going to go sunbathe. And then all we really know from the crime scene, you know, is that they encountered someone. Richard Grinnell's articles do a good job of explaining the 3 half full empty ammo boxes in the shack, and then other you know, super Western Winchester. Okay, so Winchester buys out Western. So a lot of times you'll hear me say Winchester Super X or Western Super X or Winchester Western Super X. There's boxes that have the differing labels, but when Winchester buys them out, it's all the same brand, as Drew just said. You know, one thing that we probably could show Joe, or I could pull up later on for them, is when those first July 31st Zodiac letters come. He likes it so much that he names it twice in the list that he writes. He writes brand name Super X, makes it a point to note that, and then later on in the second list, you know, or brand, or he says ammo type was Super X, brand was Winchester. So he took the time to like stay in both. A lot of people say I'm biased. As Drew mentioned when I came on, my series is the non-canonical series, so people think I have this propensity to lean into every one of these being Zodiac. I actually disagree, Drew. I actually don't think I do, because in Riverside, I was the one who poured cold water on Sherry being Zodiac, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
I think people are just surprised
I've always been kind of neutral. I've always been neutral on a lot of them, but I always thought this one was. I always said that this one to me sounded most like Zodiac, and now, like we talk about, I think this and Ray Davis are both up there.
Sure.
So Bobby and Linda get out there. That's just the two of them. They're away from the group, and they're basically you know, lay out on a couple blankets or something. Just a couple that's engaged to be married, right? Already,
yes, they're
seniors, and they're laying out by the beach. And then what happens?
Her birthday is like, I think 2 days away, and their graduation is like 3 days away. You know what I mean? It's literally days of all these events, like Drew said, like fiance. Let's set up Bobby real quick. All-American vice president of the Farmers Association, rancher, you know, All-American football player, big dude. So he's not like, a nowadays type of guy, like computer guy. So all we know is they encounter someone. My prime suspect is at the end of my suspect sections of my video, Peter. But we'll be covering that later after we establish the story. It only really leads you one place, in my opinion, because when me and Drew go down the list, we're going to discount every other local suspect. So it's pretty cut and dry for me. But we'll address the skeptics. So they're down there. All we know from the murder scene is that these 22 shells are found all over the mouth of the creek bed, and those boxes found in the shack, Drew. So a lot of people in the Zodiac community have this problem with the fact that at Gaviota Beach, the bodies of Robert and Linda are dragged back into the shack. He shoots them in the back as they're running away, and so we really don't know. Like, I honestly,
we don't know, because there was obviously no survivor. They both were killed.
Sure.
So we can only try to piece together, you know, from the newspaper reports how it went down.
Yep, exactly. So what Richard raised as the prospect in his new article is essentially that they got down there. So when the way Linda's body's found is her top is exposed. The top of one of the bathing suit.
Yeah, the top was cut. The strap
is cut. So what like Richard proposed is like they either got in some argument, and or, as we'll see later on when we analyze this evidence, there's this theory due to the bruises on Bobby's fists and the blood found 75 feet up the bluff, that the assailant is injured. You know, this is quite a bit different than the canonicals, because there's much more hands-on here. You know, there's this possible skirmish between the killer and the victim. There's, you know, him dragging the bodies in the sheds. It's like, it feels didn't do much more personal, but I don't mean personal in the sense of like it was like a classmate that they went to school with. Literally no one thinks it's that, but it's like Drew said, it's much more of like uncontrolled. It's much more like passionate. It's much more emotional than the canonicals. Let's just keep it real. This one has like emotional problem written all over it. It really does, from the way that the evidence is laid out. I mean, I have a lot of questions to that too. Like if
they're shot. I mean, so he shoots them, and she's shot in the back, kind of like Betty Lou Jensen was at Lake Herman Road. But
yeah, exactly. And real quick, a point on that. So they do test ballistics with Lake Herman. They come back as different firearms, although they both have the same 22 long Western Super X ammunition. I don't know if we're like ever going to talk Lake Herman Road when we do canonicals, Drew, but we're just going to like mention this point now. If you see Jensen's shoulder, that I think it was the coroner, or I don't know if you know the guy's name or whoever examined that. And it is, I want to run this by Brian, my firearms expert from the Navy, who's like a legit small arms instructor. Yeah. He's like, well, from the grouping on Jensen's shoulder, you could see that he's a really good shot. Drew, not a single one of those shots are next to each other. It's a big circle, and they're all peppered. So, yeah, they're in the upper right shoulder. Sure, it's in the same part of the body, but to say, like, that is an accurate grouping, I've never seen anyone, at least of all Brian's caliber, that is military, Navy military veteran. It's always in a circle. Like, Drew's probably seen these things. It's always in it. So, I don't know. We have a serious problem there at Lake Herman Road, like something – might have went wrong there. So, yeah, he gets her in the shoulder.
It's similar in the way we don't know, because obviously David Faraday and Betty Jensen were killed at like Linda and Bobby were. So they were shot. Yeah. And like you were pointing out, their bodies were, after they were both were already dead. I guess he made, I don't know how many shots he fired into each, but
it's like it's 11 into him and 9 into her. And so it's like a total of 20. So 20. A lot of us shots. Think there's probably, because only 15 are found at the mouth of the water. And so, like, what that says to me is, like, he started firing from that position. I don't know if Bobby socked him and he got stumbled and it dropped him, or even dropped him to a knee.
So but then when he comes a physical confrontation before the shooting.
So it gives Linda the lead to take off running. He shoots her from the back, but he also shoots her through the leg, like the back. The back is like may have been fatal, but like the leg shot is what dropped her. It broke her femur. He reloads this is the anger. This is the emotion. He reloads standing over and puts this wasn't point blank shots into their body, a la what you would see much like the Swindles, where he fires from far away, but then he comes back down and he gives them the coup de grace, the headshots, the execution shots. A lot of people disagree with me on all of this and say, well, the Swindles killer killed the Swindles, the Gaviota Beach killed the couple, and Zodiac doesn't kill his canonical victims because he just shoots them and runs away real quick. I mean, in my opinion, that's just Zodiac adapting when he has the Zodiac persona, because things obviously went wrong at Gaviota.
Maybe he's learning, because this is 63. Right. Exactly. Lake Herman Road's late 68, so there's been a lot of years that passed. But the interesting thing is, like you mentioned earlier, is after they're both deceased, he drags their bodies to the lean-to shack. And Bobby was big guy. He would have been, you would have had to have been pretty, in pretty good shape to drag him. But what was the distance between, and I think the shack was, kind of going up the slope of the beach, right? It is dragged their bodies to the shack.
Richard's going to kill me for this. I always get it wrong. I think it
wasn't far. It was a short distance.
15 yards time 2. Okay, bodies dragged 30 feet to the shack. Here's Richard.
That's a good distance. I mean,
from 25 yards away.
Even 15 feet, dead weight of Bobby, who was I think he was a linebacker at Lompoc High. He was a good-sized guy. Too. I mean, he's got to be 200 pounds. I mean, dead weight, dragging him to that shack. So, like I know Richard talks about a lot, what was the reason to drag the bodies to the shack? And one could have been maybe sexual with her, because her top was cut, her breasts were exposed, but there was no sign of a sexual assault or a rape. But so, like someone had mentioned before, maybe he was doing whatever by himself in that shack. Was that his goal? Was this sexual angle? But we will never know. But it's speculated that could be.
That's what Richard floated in his new articles. He could be right on that. So per Sandy Betts on Tappa Talk, who has contact with Baker and his wife, she said he told her that her top was cut after she was murdered. I don't really know how they could determine something like that in 1963.
I don't know how. Yeah.
Because kind of what my theory is that I float in episode 4 is that she has him tie up Bobby a la Lake Berryessa process. And then, once he thinks Bobby's subdued, I'm just taking guys, let me just preface, I'm not an expert on anything. I'm not a detective. I'm not law enforcement. I'm literally just speculating here, but I've been down to the sites, as Drew said. Okay, that's my experience. That maybe when he had him or thought he was secured, right, that he cut her top, and then Bobby just ripped it off, and it went right there. That's my best guess, based on, and another thing about this type of research, guys, Drew has combed through articles like the rest of us. I read probably 60, 70, 80 articles of this thing, plus the whole Vern Smith deposition. Inconsistencies all over the place. They get ages wrong, names wrong, places wrong, the number of rounds. You're going to get 20 answers. You're going to get 20 different answers. So it's on me to sift through it all and then post in the video what is looks the best to you guys, So it's not always 100% confirmed because you're going off of articles from the 60s, like Drew said. So it's just a much more that's how I describe it, just out of control. Like what I honestly think, like what Drew was just saying about the shack is, we got to discuss the snipers, Drew. You have multiple sniper attacks from the same beach.
When did the sniper attacks happen? Because it was on some people on the same nearby beach, right? It wasn't the exact area that Bobby and Linda were.
June 2nd, those kids are surfing down there at the same place. The other guys said that it was pull up my notes there real quick. The other guys said that I believe it was within feet of the same place, and they were either at the tunnels or the shots came from the cattle tunnel. So what you have, guys, is the beach, the mouth of the beach that me and Drew were talking about. By the way, it's very rocky on both sides, Drew. So it's very narrow. It's not like some spread out secluded.
Yeah, they parked on the Pacific Coast Highway, and you'd have to walk down this kind of trail that was a little bit,
it's far. It's over 100
to get
feet.
to. It was kind of a not well traveled spot. It was secluded.
Yep. So, man, where was I going? So the snipers. So June 2nd, you know what I mean? You have the sniper down there shooting at the surfer kids. Then you have an other.
He doesn't hit anybody, but they said that the shots were pretty close. Like it wasn't just joking. It was
whistling past their heads.
Yeah, they could hear they described it. The kids said they could hear the whizzing of the bullets. They were so close to them.
Yep. June 2nd, several teams said a sniper fired shots at them while surfing. They could not say the shooter. There was another reports a shot fired in an additional area, reported being in the shack shortly before the murders and having 2 shots fired at them from the railroad tracks, Drew. So what, like I was explaining to you guys, the mouth of the creek, then the creek going up north, shack to the left, just from an aerial perspective, and then the cattle tunnel at the top of the creek that goes under the pass, whatever you want to call that, the hill, the pass. I'm not a geologist. And then there's the train tracks above it. So surfers getting shot at June 2nd, then the 2 guys around the same time, June 1st to June 2nd. So what that says to me is he's in there camping with the ammo. He's being protective of the shack, and he's trying
I think Richard was writing about that too. Maybe this guy was being protective and surmised that maybe he had come back to his area and saw Bobby and Linda, and he wasn't too happy about it.
Yep, for sure. I mean, I definitely could see that for one thing. Also, I think he's trying to, drum up the gall to pull the trigger on a person. You know what I mean? Because you're not down there for days shooting at random people. Now, what I think is those surfers was probably multiple kids, right? 3 or 4 kids. It's tougher to pick one of them off and be able to stop all the rest of them from running away and going and telling on you. It's more victims. You got to stop, almost like how Bobby and Linda were running away. Now you got, multiple targets running away. What happens if you miss one? He gets away and, gets law enforcement. Same thing with the 2 guys in the shack. This killer seems to be more worried about 2 men, because if he shoots one of them, the guy sees his friend getting picked off. He might come up there and do something about it. It's more of a fight, like a Robert situation where you have this skirmish. When he finally comes across Bobby and Linda, it's just a guy with his girlfriend. So he figures, if I can overpower the male.
He's home free. And then he drags the bodies to the shack, and they don't know if his intent was to burn the bodies like a funeral pyre or whatever, but there was no real evidence at all that he was going to try to burn burn the bodies. Or I think Richard talked about the fact that if he was trying to get rid of evidence, there wasn't a whole lot to get rid of. So he's taking more of a risk to drag the bodies to the shack and being discovered, doing whatever he was planning on doing with the bodies in the shack. What his intent was. It was either to cover up evidence or maybe some sexual nature with her, or we'll never know. But it was odd that he decided to drag the bodies.
I love Richard, one of my top guys ever in the field, but here's where him and I differ. He literally poured cold water on everything. So the funeral pyre starting the matches, like, it's ambivalent because we have the spent matches with the leaves piled around with the other debris. But one thing Richard is right on is that it's not timestamped. So that could have been the day before, the week before, the month before. It could have just been there. In my opinion, though, it was. But here's the thing, like Richard's saying, because nobody heard the bullet sounds, the bullet shots, that Zodiac, or excuse me, the killer has unlimited time to do whatever he wants in the shack with the bodies, as you guys said. The problem is Robert's car is parked up on the highway, like you said, Drew.
Right.
So literally any highway patrol cop could have driven down and seen that.
And they knew people were down there because his car was clearly there on the road, that people were still
correct.
Also, one highway.
No one's going to hear the shots, period, because the canyon projects out into the Pacific Ocean. Gaviota Beach is basically like 2.5 to 4 miles north, so it's not really just like people are just walking straight down.
22 is not going to be like a really loud,
not loud. And,
like
and then there's the cattle tunnel, then there's the train tracks, then there's the highway behind it. So you have all of those things suppressing.
Like firecrackers. At 22 would sound like firecrackers anyway, even if you were up on the road and heard it.
I don't even think it would project up to the highway. I think it would just project through the canyon, off the vegetation, straight out into the ocean, and just reverberate off the waves. You know what I mean? It's like pretty much something I floated for the Swindles, but this is an 1,000 times more isolated landscape. So like maybe we differ. What I thought is, I'll just float, that he was trying to do that because of the skirmish. It shortened his whole fantasy. So, he cuts the top, if that is the timeline that happened on, does whatever, as you and Richard said. But as he's trying to light that stuff, if he has the bloody nose, then he's not just going to stick around and bleed all over everything after he just committed 2 murders. So like, it's, I think what they said was like the tarp caught, but it just, the wind blew it out, or it didn't, like it caught, but it didn't like completely ablaze, it started and then it kind of fizzled out from there. One thing Richard is right about is, he could have just washed anything off he wanted in the creek or in the ocean. So I don't have any rebuttal to that point. But
and I know another thing he's talking about is, in making this comparison to Lake Berryessa, if this is a Zodiac crime, first of all, as you mentioned, we have a 22 ammo, a long rifle bullet, which just means it has more gunpowder. So we don't know if it was an actual 22 rifle or a 22 pistol. We don't know. They just know the ammo was a 22. Of course, that's what Zodiac used at Lake Herman Road. And then the comparison with Berryessa, what did this assailant of Bobby and Linda, did he possibly make her tie him up like Zodiac did at Lake Berryessa, where they had each other tie each other up, and then Zodiac made sure the knots were good and tightened it up. But it was said that Linda possibly tied Bobby up, but this was done with some special knots that there's no way that Linda would have known as a high school student. I think they were these sailor knots. I can't remember the name, but there was like no way that Linda would have known these knots, right?
A Marlin hitch or a Marlin knot.
Hitch. A Marlin hitch
analysis. It's kind of a non-starter for me, because what more does that mean other than he just gave it to her with the knots already in it? I mean, he could be sitting in there with a bunch of rope because he left his ammo in the shack. So why wouldn't he leave the rope in the shack? Or he could have had it with him. It could have been used rope that he grabbed off the base. He could have gave it to her with the knots in it. Also, if they could do touch DNA, wouldn't Linda's DNA just be all over the rope and be on the knots, and that would tell us?
Yeah, you would think so. And and I agree with them. There's no way that she's going to know what that knot was. So, they recovered the bindings, right?
Yeah, supposedly, yep.
And it definitely had this knot that somebody that would have known, maybe a sailor or somebody in the military would have known that knot. Definitely Linda would not have known it.
So somebody said Vandenberg Air Force Base nearby. So Vandenberg Air Force Base is, I think Rich has it on his ammo article, I believe it's 45 miles north.
Right. So, again, let's talk about the ammo and whether or not it was from the sporting goods store or from Vandenberg.
Yeah, they both sold, I think, the proper brand. So the only lot number matched to AFB, but because it could have came from a battle pack, a large bulk order, it makes it infinitely harder to trace. It's basically like they just put a big stamp on the outside of the plastic or something, and then each one is kind of like unlabeled inside of it. And then when you rip off that big initial package,
so that was indistinguishable once you got out of the box into the smaller, and then they found how much. I mean, he had a lot of ammo, right? I mean, he had 4 full boxes, and they found like about, I think there was 3 boxes left at the shack,
half full,
and they weren't completely used.
Yep. That's what Richard's article said. 50%, around 50% spent, and like 1 empty. And what that says to me is he was sitting in the shack when he was like taking those shells out, shooting at people.
Right. Which goes back to what you're talking about with the sniper, because that would make sense if he was the sniper, that he would have plenty of ammo, way more than enough to kill a couple if this was his target. So
200 rounds.
Yeah. So no one really believes that he was just targeting them like a jealous, somebody else that liked Linda or was jealous of their relationship, because I think they had been dating a long time. They were engaged to be married. This was a long time high school couple. So I don't think, there's none of that going on. I think this was something where they weren't tracked or anything. Something happened that enraged this guy. And, they were just there at the wrong time. Like Brian and Cecilia at Lake Berryessa. He did not follow them. They weren't even going to go to Berryessa that day. So could have been
same thing with Robert and Linda. Same thing with David and Betty. So it's like it's super difficult. Both the canonicals and the non-canonicals say both. So they were supposed to put it this way, like Drew just said, if they went to the regular student senior ditch day with the rest of the class at Goleta, this never happens, or someone else does go down there. It's some other couple, but it doesn't happen to Bobby.
Maybe he was planning to do something there that day, but he didn't know who was going to show up, and they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
You know what I tried to look at? A couple things that some more like behind the scenes that I haven't fully released that people probably don't know. So I saw someone ask on Richard's website if anyone has like FOIA'd actually have I think it's case file 73588 or something. What 73855. So I FOIA'd this to Santa Barbara sheriffs. I could show Drew the email. It's not much to look at, guys. It's like 1 sentence basically saying no, open case. No, even though it's 63, you'd think, something would happen, but no, I FOIA'd it. They didn't give me anything. I FOIA'd Riverside too. But okay, like, I don't know. I mean, here's something. If you want, Drew, pull up that press release I sent you if you have it when you get a chance.
There's some... that one. Oh, was it one of these two? We'll talk about Sandy. I want to get to that.
We could do that. We could do that as well. It's like the little square thing that if you don't have it up there, I could probably pull it up. It's not that one. That's the injured thing.
Yeah, I might have missed one. There's 2 of them.
I mean, we could do these if you want to just get into Sandy. I mean, we can kind of
let's get into Sandy, and I'll put that up. But explain the whole deal with Sandy, because
we could talk Vern. So like Drew was saying earlier about how heavy Bobby was. So Sandy was described. He's described as 150 pounds right there.
Right. Yeah. There's the sketch of Sandy, and
a big
and
guy.
Sandy comes up because of the murder of Vern Smith, right? And he was pointed out by Reed and Coleman. Coleman and Reed.
Yes. So I mean, the whole like crime spree is interesting, because I was pulling this up on Google Maps earlier because I wanted to show maybe at one point I could share my screen, Drew, and I'll show you guys just like the distance from Canada del Molino to up there to the San Miguelito Canyon, because it's not that close, Drew. It's like 40 plus miles, and it's through a mountain road that goes under a bunch of tunnels through a mountain range. So if you're saying some kid that's 150 pounds with a knife in his pocket was going back and forth those 50-mile distances, Sandy didn't have a car. They did have the stolen Sunbeam. Yeah. So then you're assuming that Reed and Coleman drove him around to all these murders. So why would they want to be the accessory and implicate themselves? That doesn't make any sense either.
For a lot of reasons.
So this is a good place to do this, just like for Drew's audience and whoever's here for mine. So I make a massive announcement in Zodiac Files episode 4 where I totally poured cold water on Sandy and basically discounted him for both murders. So from those articles Drew just showed, I kind of like I had some hyperbole in that announcement, right? So what those articles actually say is a Sandy suspect was discounted, not the Sandy suspect. Now, I still have a whole bunch of questions about that, because Sandy was cited by multiple witnesses. So when they went and Santa Cruz detectives go to the OC and they go talk to that kid who's supposedly one of the Sandys, right? One of the Sandys. It's like Eminem with the Slim Shady army with the blonde-haired kids, Drew. There's a whole bunch of these Sandys. There's 10 or 20 Sandys. I'm not even joking. So it's, this is already over convoluted enough with just Gaviota, and then you add the Vern Smith thing, then you start adding all these weird suspects. Yeah. So
Vern Smith explain Vern Smith real quick. He was an older guy. It was just a random robbery.
A minor. So these kids, JC Reed and Coleman, as Drew said, they meet this other third kid who's supposed to be this blonde-haired kid in this picture to the left with all the descriptions there. They meet him at the Santa Cruz boardwalk. They basically go on this crime spree with him of breaking into businesses and stealing food and drinks, and then they also break into this woman's house and they go in her purse and steal some money from her. Then they steal the Sunbeam and they drive out here to Lompoc, back to like the Santa Barbara area, in the general vicinity of Gaviota Beach, but not even really down to the beach and not even really the exact location.
So no one had seen any of these three punks, as we'll call them, down at the beach.
No, I think the reason why the sheriff was investigating this is because they didn't have any suspects for Domingos Edwards, and then they knew that the Vern Smith murder occurred the night before, June 3rd.
Yeah, so it was just a timing thing, but there was nothing really tangible that would make you think that Sandy was the one that killed.
Location-wise, it's actually pretty far away. Like I was just saying, it's not even the town next door. Like it's a good drive. It's a good 45-minute drive, much like Vandenberg AFB. So they go to a restaurant where I think it was Coleman's mother or one of their moms worked, and they're like, she buys their food. They see this guy come in. Mom mentions that he keeps a lot of money on him. He's a minor. So they conspire to rob the dude. So the ruse they come up with is that their car stalled. They ran out of gas, blah, blah, blah. So they go to his house in the night, knock on the door. He agrees to help them. They go to the gas station, fill up the can. When he comes back to fill up their car, supposedly you have these two kids that stole the Sunbeam and this supposed composite sketch of this third kid. Reed and Coleman blame it on Sandy conveniently. Yeah, the guy who is not never found. And they say that he stabbed him in the back, and it was basically just like a kill shot, Drew. It hit him right in the heart. The one, so it's like, the problem is, so that's the Vern Smith story. The problem is just like Sandy was seen with them before the murder. We have no idea what happens after, and then they supposedly go drop off Sandy, after, where he is seen at a motel, only like by himself. So it's basically the story by the two kids who got arrested that they obviously threw the book at them and give them.
Yeah, they're not real credible. They're just trying to blame it on this guy they're not really buddies with.
They're 16 and 17. Like me and Drew aren't criminals, but if I take Drew and we go to rob someone and then the guy ends up dead and we're 16, 17 years old, what are we going to say during the investigation? It wasn't me and Drew. It was the third guy that was with us that he's not here anymore,
Yeah. And he's an easy fall guy.
So that's the paperwork tries him for murder as a, an unconfirmed John Doe or unapprehended John Doe. So the whole thing is weird. Then they go question this kid and clear him. So, or one of the Sandys, because it's all the Sandys, right? There's like a million of them in the. He said he came from San Francisco. His whole backstory is super shady. So,
realistically, no way this if the way he's described, like here, he's a little guy, he's not dragging Bobby's dead weight up to that shack, even if it's 15 feet. No way.
Well, the problem with the Sandy as a Domingos Edwards suspect or Sandy as a Zodiac suspect, like I'm pretty sure the guy, who was at Gaviota or Canada Del Molino is more like a heavier guy, like more like a Zodiac type body type. Robert being that All-American football player, if he got in a skirmish with a kid that's 150, Robert probably would have knocked him out in one punch. He could have dragged him into the creek and drowned him. He could have dragged him into the ocean and grounded him. He could have smashed his head in with a rock. He would have had multiple avenues of fighting back. The other problem is, although Sandy was going around saying he was trying to obtain this 22 rifle or trying to get ammunition, is you already have the sniper shootings down there, like the first, the second, then you have the Vern Smith murder the third at night, and then you have Gaviota Beach the next day around like 4 p.m. the fourth. So if that's Sandy, you're assuming that, and this is what I think ultimately discounts him for at least for Domingos Edwards. You're assuming that he's camping down there with the rifle for 2 days. He travels 45 minutes north to the San Miguelito Canyon where Vern Smith's trailer is. Then he comes back the next day, which is not impossible. He could have did it with like a couple 20-hour walks, right? Or the guys drop him off with a sunbeam. It's
crazy.
It's totally unrealistic. It's not impossible.
It's unrealistic. Here's the article you sent me. This is the one, and I'll put this one up.
Totally unrealistic.
It's this one. It's the U-17 question on Lompoc killings, Newport Beach. Two Santa Barbara County detectives questioned a 17-year-old youth at length Monday about the Lompoc murders of high school sweethearts Linda Edwards and Robert Domingos and the fatal killing of Vern C. Smith, who we were just talking about. The youth was lodged in Orange County Juvenile Hall Sunday night after a Newport Beach resident alerted authorities that he matched the description of a teenage suspect known only as Sandy, and that the boy was armed with a .22 caliber rifle, which is, I guess that's the tie-in with Sandy and Bobby and Linda. Santa Barbara County Sheriff James Webster dispatched the detectives to interrogate the youth. They decided, however, that he had no connection with the June 4th murders of those high school sweethearts or the June 2nd slaying of Smith. That's the interesting line there.
I think that
he was guilty of Vern Smith.
Correct. That's where I was. Although we don't know that that's the Sandy, it's just a Sandy. But also, I think that June 2nd is a typo because the next article says June 3rd. But my point still stands, and I think Drew agrees with me here. So if Sandy's the sniper down there for 2 days, you guys have him shooting at people all week because that's what the Zodiac does, and then going back and stabbing Vern in the back and killing him at night, then coming back the next day and killing Bobby and Linda. If he has the .22 rifle, why didn't he just shoot Vern in the head when he walked out of his house? That's what the Zodiac would have done. Zodiac just drives up in a car, shoots people, and drives away. You know what I mean?
Was there any article tying in the possibility of the sniper being the murderer of Bobby and Linda?
There's several. I some of them are in my episode, but it's just very these sniper shootings happened a couple days before, so it ties it in, but not super nice, not with a bow on it, Drew.
It didn't get the play that Sandy got, whichever Sandy.
So what sense does that make? You literally have someone on the beach 2 days later shooting at random people.
Focused on this kid that couldn't even have done it, or there's nothing even other than this thing about him having a .22, which somebody mentioned earlier in the comments. Who didn't have a .22?
Everybody had a .22. George Gill, the guy who built the shack, had a .22. Robert Lee Bell had two .22s. Go look at my suspect section in my video. Every single one of the local suspects had a .22. So it's just interesting. And then what I would like to know about this Sandy suspect is, what was their investigation? Was it just what did the detectives ask him? Did they just say, hey, where were you on June 3rd and June 4th? And if he's like, oh, well, I was locked up here in juvie, and they were like, okay, this guy's good. Whereas if that was Sandy that was with Reed and Coleman, even if he's already in juvie, do you think he's going to tell the detectives that he was with the two murderers prior to the crime? Probably not, right? Oh yeah, I was with Reed and Coleman when they were stabbing that guy to death. Yeah. Because then they're going to throw even more stuff on whatever else he's already locked up for, which is like an illegal firearm or whatever, obviously. So there's that second article as well. So anyway, I made a grand standing of totally discounting Sandy for both crimes.
Yeah. Nobody thinks Sandy's a player. So sniper in the area. We can agree that whoever the assailant was probably did not know Bobby and Linda, but something made him mad. I mean, what do you think it was? Just because he was on his turf and this guy was camping out there in the lean-to?
No, I think it was.
Was he a hobo, or if it was Zodiac? If it was Zodiac, which I think you think it was, what do you think? He's just in training, and he's obviously the first thing this has in common with the Zodiac attack is it's a couple alone. A lover's lane. It's a beach. It's a couple on a beach. Yeah. So he may have this fixation and jealousy of young couples because, that's what the first three canonical crimes are. It's couples. So do you think they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time? And this was the him in training. And somebody else, a good friend, pointed out to me too, like with the bindings and maybe the fire, if the fire was set by the assailant, maybe he was trying to complete the by fire, by rope, the Tim Holt Wheel of Death, maybe.
Yep. It's okay. If you're asking me what my theory is, yeah, of course, I announced prime suspect
let's get into
my video. It's a younger Zodiac in training. This is a hunting ground. He's already been shooting at people for 2 days. I don't think Sandy is this commuter killer that the internet makes him out to be, this mysterious commuter killer that no one could catch. The other problem with the Sandy thing is when he checked in at the Royal Grande, the lady saw him and knows what he looks like. So did those Santa Ana detectives bring that witness with them when they questioned that perp and said, like, hey, is this the guy you saw check into the hotel? Like, I would like to know a little bit more about that investigation.
Just a side note, I remember when they checked into the hotel, was that Coleman and Reed that checked in, right?
2 separate ones. They got caught because they were trying to buy ammo, but he was at a different one. They dropped him off first, so he was at a Royal Grande. They went to a different.
Who was checking into the hotel in Aurora Grande?
Sandy.
Oh, the Sandy was okay. Was he by himself?
By himself. $20 in his pocket. She saw him. Also, when they were going on their crime spree, they went to a junkyard to like drink with some girls, and he jumped in the back of their car and he left that like camo jacket that he said he stole from the Army Navy store. I think it had had the name William Carr in it, I think, or Robert Kaufman, one of those names. One he used to check into the motel, and one was written in the jacket. I don't know if either of those names were actually Sandy's names. Also, if he stole it from Army Navy, it could have already been written in there, right? It could have just been some soldier that sold his jacket, right? But those girls saw Sandy too. So Sandy was seen by multiple like witnesses. So that's what I'd like to know more about that investigation. Like, how did they rule him out? Did they just say, hey, he had an alibi for the 4th? And they were like, okay, this guy's good. Let's go on to the next Sandy. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, so the way I have the scenario is like exactly what Drew said. Like, he more than likely had that Lake Berryessa fantasy already in pre-planning. So I think he was planning to commit a murder. He was stalking out the location, like Drew said, the shack, the Gaviota Beach. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like Drew said about the hobo, George Gill, the transient beachcomber with the .22 rifle that built the shack, he lived in the shack on and off. So it almost like speaks to my whole like thing of what I've spoken to Drew behind the scenes about, which is like Zodiac either having a propensity for framing people or not really minding if someone like Arthur Lee Allen takes a bunch of heat for the Zodiac crimes. No, Drew's theory aside, we're all on the Zodcast. We know like what Drew's theory is, but I think this applies even more so in Drew's theory, but it also applies like without Drew's theory that when other people get blamed, dude doesn't now like Drew says, he doesn't want him getting all the credit, right? But if the police investigation is looking at someone that's totally the wrong suspect, Zodiac really doesn't mind that, right? Because how does it affect him? He gets the publicity, and they're on the wrong trail. That's all he cares about. George Gill lived in that shack up until a certain period of time. So what happens if this killer, in my opinion, the early Zodiac, the young Zodiac, he encounters George Gill at the shack and they have a territory dispute? George Gill has a .22 rifle as well. So if he did this, a few months earlier on, those guys could have got it in a shootout with each other. You know what I'm saying? Had the Gaviota Beach murderer tried this on somebody that was armed, it could have gone quite differently. You know what I mean? He just happened on the senior ditch day, like Drew said, against two teenagers that happened to be by themselves. The other thing I thought about, Drew, I don't like deep dive numbers games, but this was June 4th. Blue Rock Springs, depending on how you flip your coin, is July like 4th, late 5th. Night, July 4th, or slightly after midnight on the 5th. So technically almost exactly 1 month before Blue Rock Springs for, June 4th, July 4th, 45th, maybe nothing. I also looked up like any religion I could find holidays, so we could try to get a holiday connection for Gaviota, but I looked up Celtic, I looked up ancient, there was nothing. So I tried to.
What day of the week was it? I don't know. I never looked it up. But what was it? Well, obviously during the week it was a school week because it was a senior student day, so it wasn't a weekend. It wasn't a Saturday or Sunday, obviously. Maybe
that's
a Friday.
Obviously in my video. That is obviously somewhere. I've actually forgotten. Interesting.
But it wasn't
thing,
a special. It wasn't a long weekend or a holiday. It was. But that could have been later. If this is a young Zodiac, maybe he hasn't even invented the persona yet. Because I think Zodiac described. I think he said that Lake Herman Road started his collecting of slaves. So he never says that, and we know that Zodiac never pointed to this crime. I mean, we know he tried to claim.
Hold on, he said there's a hell of a lot more down there.
But yeah, he said a lot more down there, talking about Southern California, Riverside. Obviously, Kathleen Johns lady was a rather interesting ride. No one really believed. A lot of people now really don't believe Kathleen Johns.
I shot a man in a car,
but he took credit for it. You know, he didn't mind taking credit. But I will say this: this is odd that he dragged those bodies to the shack. It's not normal. It's different, and Zodiac is definitely different. You know what he did.
Well,
this isn't just a jealous person or somebody just wanted to kill him. He would have left him there. Them dragging the bodies to the shack is not normal, especially when there was not, like Richard pointed out, there's not much evidence to get rid of there. You know, he did, unless it was something sexual. There was really no reason to do it. So it's really strange that he did that. So that's a connection to Zodiac to me that it's odd. You know,
agreed, 100%
murder.
100%. So, like, let's talk a little bit about that. Zodiac doesn't touch the bodies, but he does manipulate the crime scene. Like at Lake Berryessa, he leaves that note on Brian Hartnell's door, because he's influenced by the headline of like the Manson crimes of, you know, the Pig and Helter Skelter and the graffiti sprawls all over the wall. So, I mean, he does take time to write a note on a car door later on Lake Berryessa. So I think he always kind of had that affinity for manipulating the crime scene. Also, Ray Davis was grabbed by his belt loop and pulled out of the car and dumped. And, you know, he supposedly, I was just about to get into that. So, you know, other than up until Stein, he really hadn't touched anyone in the canonicals. But as Drew was saying, I could see that as a callback to Davis, even little things as, you know, as a callback to all this stuff, really. But I think the reason why he never takes credit for, other than there's a hell of a lot more down there, is because of the skirmish with Bobby and him getting injured when he's armed. He got, you know, probably punched in his face by an unarmed victim. And that just makes him look.
You know, let's say that it is let's just go with it. This was a Zodiac, you know, a young Zodiac. Maybe he hasn't created the persona yet or put it in place. That's why he says my collection of slaves starts at Lake Herman Road, because that's when I invented Zodiac. And then, you know, debut of Zodiac's obviously late July '69, hasn't been invented yet. So this is something different. You know, he's learning his way. You know, he's going to target couples, and this is his thing, and he's scoping it out. So maybe he's, you know, just laying in wait, you know, for the right people to come along at the right time. And he's learning, and maybe there was some reason for dragging the bodies there. You know, I can see that. You know,
I find it like Drew was saying, the way he kind of ambushed them at Lake Berryessa, like we said, almost every single time people showed up at those spots randomly. I mean, I think Darlene and Mike were like kind of almost they went to the burger shop and kind of drove around a little bit randomly. Almost every single one of them, Stein works as a taxi driver, right? So it's slightly different. It's downtown city, but almost every single one of them was almost like driving around at random. You know, I was even reading about, you know, Berryessa. They went to the rummage sale, and then they were planning to go to San Francisco. And then I think one of the other couples was planning to go to San Francisco too. And then the plans changed. So it's just like, it's very convoluted, but it says to me like a target area, you know, like Lake Herman Road being a target area, Lake Berryessa being a target area. These beaches. A thing I have about Vandenberg Air Force Base is a question for Drew, and I don't even know if you know this. It's even a basic military question: is if Cheney has his post Air Force credentials, can he still get on VAB to the Air Force base?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so he could buy it to PX, just being ex Air Force, no problem.
Okay, so that's a big thing.
He's right in there.
Yeah. As far as you want to talk about when my research and Drew's research correlates, that's a point right there.
He was ex-Air Force. He could have gotten in there easily. But, you know, another thing about this crime, if I'm trying to describe how this could be Zodiac, well, the number one thing would be dragging, like I keep going back to that, dragging the dead weight of Bobby to that shack. You got to be a good-sized guy. You got to be. You're not scrawny little Sandy. You're not just some little beach hobo guy. You got to be pretty darn stout to drag dead weight of Bobby's body up there. Linda's one thing, but to drag Bobby, you're a strong dude. You're physically probably a stocky guy like Zodiac. To have that kind of strength to have dragged that body there. That's something that's going to line up with Zodiac, which was described by everybody is stocky, barrel-chested, Walrus type, Mike Mageau. Every description of Zodiac was something along the stocky range, and that would be the first thing I'd point to is somebody was strong enough to drag him to that thing. Couple alone, like a Lover's Lane. He does use 22, Lake Herman Road. There are a lot of things there. I think people maybe go a little too far trying to make it like Berryessa because we don't know who tied up who. I don't think Linda would have known those knots, but that knot was there, right? That knot was in that rope. So that's something that Zodiac would do. Zodiac would be somebody that would know those knots if he was in the military or had sailing experience. And I'm not trying to shoot Horn Shady there because he had both, but somebody that knew that knot. This is somebody that probably had some hunting background or military to tie that knot that they found.
Yeah, I mean, so kind of like one thing Drew's right about, like that rope, the article recorded like that rope was found in the shack. We don't really, I'm not 100% sure if that rope is the binding. It doesn't say much to me other than though, like he could have just gave it to her, like with those knots already in it. I don't see why she has to be the knot tire. Like, hey, tie up your boyfriend.
It could have been already done and then.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Tie up your boyfriend with this gun in your face. And oh, by the way,
it's good.
Make it in a Marlin hitch. He's not concerned with that. Also, so Baker thought it was a rifle. I personally think it was a rifle. One thing I've learned from shooting at the on-site locations, like you guys see in my series and my episodes, is way back when we did Ocean Beach with the Swindles, which it takes place 1 year later after Gaviota. When I saw that bluff, I was like, I just had the feeling that it was a rifle until I got down there and I seen like it was a way shorter of a distance than I thought it was. A pistol would have more than got the job done at Ocean Beach, the Swindles. Why I think it's a rifle at Gaviota is because of those the point blank powder burns in the bodies. For that to occur with a pistol, you'd have him getting down on one knee and putting the pistol to, or all these awkward stances you'd have to take.
Yeah, and if it is connected to the sniper, obviously sniper's going to sniping people are going to be more of a rifle and not a pistol.
I mean, you could be sniping with people with a pistol. It'd make absolutely no sense. I don't know what was going on in 63. I think Drew's description is likely much more accurate. He's already down there with the rifle. So, you're going to take all these awkward positions to try to lower the barrel of the pistol to the body. No, because he stood over him and reloaded. So he's just aiming. He's standing over him after he reloaded, aiming down, putting the muzzle to the body. And, just to discuss the movement of the bodies, because the Zodiac, community makes such a big deal about that. Well, like it's anger. It's emotional. It's anger. He dragged Bobby back there with his girlfriend because he wanted to desecrate them after he couldn't pull his fantasy off the way he wanted, or him and Bobby got in a skirmish or whatever.
To me, because there's no reason to drag them to that shack. There's no reason at all.
It's the angriest Zodiac we've ever seen.
Sexual maybe with her, but even if it was, let's just say it was a sexual thing, wanted to see her naked or whatever. Why does he drag Bobby there?
Right, exactly. Well, I still think he was trying to light the shack on fire because, like Richard said, people will see the smoke or whatever, but Gaviota Beach State Park is still 4 or 5 miles north. It's already 4 o'clock, so the sun's basically coming down throughout this crime. So, you know what I mean? Even if the shack burns to the ground, by the time it's dark, I'm not sure how many people are even going to see it, or even if really anyone's going to notice it. It's way more remote than you guys think. This is the most remote look. I think it's the most, if you want to just say like, other than Lake Berryessa, like, out of all the 8 crimes, this is by far the most remote location. Plus, nothing's going to be heard, from the highway and the train tracks. So it's just, I think it's anger. And he drags him back, and then you find that blood 75 feet up the bluffs. There's no real explanation for that other than he got into a physical altercation with Bobby. Now, one story is floated that Bobby broke up a fight at school and he may have had the bruises from that. And then that's just, once again, another convoluted inconsistency. And me personally, I like the confrontation with the killer because it just seems more fitting based on the evidence and everything me and Drew just went through. But I mean, yeah, I guess if there's one aspect I'm missing, maybe Bobby broke up a fight at school and I'm compounding things that are unrelated. But welcome to Gaviota Beach, Drew. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Do we have the press release, Drew, or do you want me to try to pull it up?
I don't know if I have it or not.
All right, let me see.
There's a couple of those.
See what I can do.
I don't think I have it.
Mine isn't great, but we'll see if we can, because there's some interesting things I think you guys will find interesting on here. Present.
How did that one start?
The
press release. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you got it? Or I'm sharing.
I have it.
Right
I can read it. I have it here.
Well, check the screen, Drew. I think if you click my thing, you'll be able to share my part, and then just let me know if it works.
There it is.
Okay, you guys. Whoops,
oh wait,
I put you guys in the matrix. Here we are.
There it is.
The mirror, the infinity. Okay, so this is the press release, and you guys are going to find some interesting verbiage here.
Yeah, I'll read it. Wait. In response to inquiries that I have received regarding. Okay, when is this from? First of all, where does this come from?
Yeah, it's a bit after. It might be 70s. I think this is a while long after, because it's a good
time after the murders.
Yeah, like after Baker's time, which I think probably 71, 72. I do have the dates somewhere.
I'll read it. In response to inquiries that I have received regarding the recent investigation into the 1963 murders of Linda Edwards and Robert Domingos, I would like to make the following announcement. So I guess this is from the police?
Yeah, it's the sheriff.
The sheriff, okay. And in June of 1963, a young teenage couple was found shot to death near an isolated stretch of beach north of Santa Barbara. The victims, both Lompoc High School seniors, had been shot numerous times and their bodies placed in a small lean-to shack a short distance from the beach. An extensive investigation by sheriff's detectives failed to reach a successful solution to the killings. Although the case was never closed, no substantial leads could be developed. Over a year, sheriff's detectives began a thorough study of the case, examining and re-evaluating all aspects of the crime. A recent development has been provided information that appears somewhat promising. Considerable evidence points to the murders of Linda Edwards and Robert Domingos as being the work of the infamous Zodiac. All the anticipated response to this statement would be one of skepticism. Let me say that we do not make this assertion frivolously. Many hundreds of hours over the past several months have been spent compiling information concerning the possibility that this man could have been responsible for the killings in 1963. Sheriff's detectives have met with investigators from those areas where Zodiac has admittedly been responsible for several murders. These agencies have conducted intensive investigations for the past several years in an effort to identify Zodiac. After conferring with officers in these other jurisdictions, we have found that there appears to be a high degree of probability that this subject is responsible for the double murder in our county. Wow, this is amazing. Several significant similarities between our case and others, as well as other evidence, which I am not at liberty to disclose at this time. I would love to know what that is. All tend to connect Zodiac with this crime. In addition, we have information to be investigated further, which may place him in the Santa Barbara area in 1963. Wow. All possibilities will be investigated thoroughly to confirm or disprove their validity. I would like to emphasize that we are not using the notoriety of Zodiac to dispose of a difficult case, nor are we closing our minds to the possibility that he may not be responsible. Very simply, this office feels that sufficient evidence exists to warrant further investigation into the feasibility of this assumption. It is hoped that a more factual determination can be gained by combining our efforts with those of other law enforcement agencies already working along these lines. It is requested that any person with information related to this case contact Detective William Baker, who will be heading the investigation. He can be contacted by either telephone or writing the Santa Barbara County's Sheriff's Department. That's amazing. And the way that they say that, hey, we're not just jumping on this because of the notoriety of Zodiac, that they talk to the other jurisdictions of, I guess Napa, obviously, Benicia, Vallejo PD, and SFPD. And so those guys were definitely believing this was Zodiac as well. So that's hard to dispute.
Yep. So to all the skeptics and Richard, I feel you. I love your work and your process, and I think everybody should approach the non-canonicals just how Richard does, breaking down every aspect of the analysis. That's really the only way you can approach it, logically. But what the naysayers would say to me is, oh well, what's the evidence that proves this is Zodiac? Like, for one thing, you could take the Horn approach and say there's not really that much evidence that Zodiac did the canonicals in some cases, right? And on the other hand,
that's a good point. That's a great point.
Yeah.
There's nothing like, Professor Horn loves to tie any one of the two canonical crimes together. Not
Correct.
No fingerprints from the Napa phone booth match anything lifted off the cab, as we know. There is no 100% evidence that any two canonical crimes are the same person. Of course, they believed at the time that he was responsible for all four, but there is no concrete evidence of 100% that two of the crimes are even connected. That's a good point. That's a great point.
The Zodiac community just loves the canonicals because Zodiac claims the canonicals. As Drew and I just said, he also claimed there's a hell of a lot more down there. An interesting car ride to a woman with a baby. I shot a man in a car with a 38. He said
Lake
a bunch
Herman
of
Road
other...
Lake Herman Road could have, I even would say this, Lake Herman Road could have been I don't know, maybe they were mad at Faraday over some drug deal or whatever. I don't really think that. It's probably Zodiac, but I can't say 100%. Lake Herman Road could have been anyone. I mean, it really could.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That one
just wanted to jump off that and started at Blue Rock, which explains the long gap between Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs. That could have easily been somebody else.
Although these non-canonicals do have similar 6 to 8 month gaps, so it kind of tracks with the overall pattern. Also, like Drew said, that you have more than just 22 at Gaviota Beach and Lake Herman Road. You also have 22 long rifle at the Swindles and Ray Davis. So, I mean, not to say that 22
it's interesting that anyone would pick a 22 round, even a long rifle, which is just more gunpowder, to kill people, because that is not going to get the job done. You're going to have to fire multiple times. It's a small, everybody's seen a 22 bullet. It's really small. You got to really fire it in the right places to kill someone with it. It's not as even as powerful as a 9mm or 44. You're definitely going to get the job done. It's going to make less noise, which is an advantage, but not what you really want to think that you would use to go out and kill people.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hunting firing arm. They call it small game, But one thing it is painful. Like Drew said, you're definitely going to have to shoot him more. So it's, I guess it's Zodiac's torture fetish if this is what he's going for, at least inflicting pain on the victims. But
that's interesting. So going back to the press release, does anyone have any idea what they might be referring to that they can't release?
Yeah, J.B. Averett has read it. I've had a little bit of contact with him. He's seen the evidence, but I unfortunately can't get anyone to talk. Baker knows. Averett knows. I mean, those are probably the only two people I know living that know, but I'm sure whoever they're
not talking.
They're not. I mean, Averett's got
they
his
can't release it, I guess, because if they ever did find the right person, or even this many years later, they can't. They gotta keep that quiet if they were able to. Yeah, I mean, I would love to know what that is. Who wouldn't, right?
Me too. I would love to get him to tell me offline, even if I couldn't tell you guys. But Averett's a PhD, so he's not going to speak. He's smart.
Can they hint that it's something that's pretty if Ross, if you knew this, you would be convinced this was Zodiac.
So what my big thing is, so what the rumor was that Moore floated in the criminology podcast, there's supposedly this rumor that it's 10.5 wing walker footprints.
Oh, wow. I was going to ask about that because I wondered that if they didn't find a footprint there.
That's what, they found footprints. They found footprints. They won't tell us the size or what they are. My guess is, you guys that have seen my prospect, you know what I push, is 10.5 wing walkers. Richard, I would love to cross you over to the dark side if anyone could confirm 10.5 wing walkers. I just have a feeling that a lot of the Zodiac community skeptics would say, well, so what? It's just 2 beach crimes with 10.5 wing walkers at them. And I would say,
yeah, that'd be a
okay.
pretty,
I mean, if we come up with a third one,
yeah. I mean, if it was the right size, and it was definitely a wing walker, because there wasn't too many, and I cannot remember what year the shoes.
I've tried to find that, and I've asked Brian. I don't know if they were in distribution by 63 or
I don't
not.
know. Yeah, I think it was.
I don't know either.
If it was close to there, which would have been interesting.
Even if it was a Navy or Air Force engineering shoe that was a close enough brand, it would probably be interesting if it was the same size. You know what I mean?
If it was the same size, it'd be circumstantial, sure, but yeah, that would be a pretty nice.
But this is what Drew is referring to, which is my favorite line that we highlighted in the episode, because I really wanted to hammer this home. I mean, a lot of people say maybe I went too deep on the Zodiac. It's just because this was the last canonical, and I wanted it to be a hint to the transition to where the next 4 episodes are going, which should be an easy guess for you guys. But several significant similarities between our case and the others, as well as other evidence, which I'm not at liberty to disclose at this time. So, like, it's got to be the pre-cut rope. It's got to be the footprints. And then I don't know if they found other physical stuff. And then that is the most important line to me. But then me and Drew got to talk about this this next one. In addition, we have information to be investigated further, which may place him in the Santa Barbara area in 63.
Who's him?
And I have no idea what that is referring to, because we've never really seen Zodiac ever referred to as him
could they be talking about Allen? Could they be talking about Arthur Lee Allen?
I think that's the only prime suspect we know of.
Right? I mean, obviously Arthur Lee Allen went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which is about an hour away.
I have basically no interest in Allen as the Zodiac other than what's referenced in Drew's book. But like I asked Drew about Cheney's Air Force credential to get the ammo at VAB, if Allen is down here at the trailer or wherever, placed him in the Santa Barbara area in 63, that
I think Allen was at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in 63, if I'm recalling correctly. So he would have been about an hour away.
Where is I can cut that for now. Where is Cheney in 63? Is he down in Pomona?
He's at Cal Poly Pomona. So Allen went to Cal Poly for a while in San Luis Obispo, which is obviously a lot closer. I mean, that's about an hour away from this location.
It's pretty overall. It's the same kind of general area with some stretch. But that's my thing. Drew knows what I think. I think that if Zodiac ever has someone that he can scapegoat locally, he has no problem with it. So if they have this dude in Santa Barbara,
maybe Allen did it. Maybe Allen did it, and he knew it. Who knows? I mean, if you believe the Seawaters, it was definitely him. Remember the Seawaters famous story? That they were at Gaviota Beach in 63, and Allen leaves the Seawater kids in the car in his Austin Healey, I believe, and he walks down to the beach, parks on PCH, goes down there. He's gone for an hour, and he comes back covered in blood, which, of course, that was the jumping of the shark for the Seawaters.
Yes.
But hopefully they're not hopefully they're not placing Allen there based on the Seawaters story.
No, luckily we know that this came out way before that, because we know that Baker's...
Oh, yeah, way before. You're right.
Baker's cold case Baker's cold case reign was 70. No, he started around 70 and worked it till 91. So I believe that came out... it's got to be between 72 and 74. It was kind of during the Baker reign. The Seawaters did jump the shark. I mean,
I would think Arthur Lee Allen, because if they're talking to the other jurisdictions, a lot of them were heavily convinced that Allen was Zodiac.
So I jumped the shark on Sandy, but the Seawaters jumped the shark way worse on Allen with that Gaviota story.
Even if it was Allen, I don't think he would have been dumb enough to go kill a couple and come back to the car covered in blood.
Why would you bring people to the So the whole thing about leaving the ammo in there and shooting at people all week long before the Domingos Edwards murder is why would you have witnesses that you would bring to your own murder if you've been camping out there for days? The whole hunting camping thing fits Cheney, if anyone. So, I have no interest in Allen going down there. However, if Allen is watching Cheney's movement per Drew's theory, and he knows that he's whatever local in in Santa Barbara, like Cheney's got no problem going down there and doing that, right? Because if anything, I live in Pomona, this Arthur Lee guy lived in Santa Barbara in 63, same old thing. Maybe you should look into this guy, like it even applies.
They've probably only known each other a year at this point in 63, right. Maybe a year and a half max. I think
he could have already been thinking about it. Hey, if this guy's way weirder than me, this guy, is likely to, I don't know when the, the pedophilia and all that crap went down, but, if he already thought that dude was like hot on the police radar like that, he's like, well, dude, this guy's way more of a suspect than me. He's got the bad history and the rap sheet,
Yeah. And then you could kind of, if that was a theory, let's say it's Alan, and move it over to Sherry Joe Bates. It is interesting that was the only day that's true that Alan was absent from school in Valley Springs. Was the day after the Halloween Eve of the Bates killing in 1966, which was always, it was an interesting thing that is true. Alan just didn't miss work.
Supposedly at the race, and then Rodelli has Chel Cavalier at the race. I mean, you guys saw where I was at. Me and Drew. I mean, you've almost always been 50-50 or less on.
Oh yeah, I don't never really had a dog in the fight on any of the non-canonicals. Ray Davis is interesting. These both are. Ray Davis really is. I mean, you can talk about a cab driver, 1962. There's a phone call after that. It's so similar to Stein. Yeah. I mean, this and Davis really stick out.
I feel like almost of all of us, Drew has almost always been the lowest on Riverside, and that even
I still don't think that's Zodiac for a lot of reasons.
Degree, like kind of where I landed was like I could, if Zodiac lived in there or around that area, I could maybe have him doing like the type confession and the letters, and that might without actually doing the crime, because and why I think that tracks is because of what me and Drew just said. He tries to take credit for Johns. He tries to take credit for Ratatich. He tries to take credit for Lass, and then he throws in all this nonsense. Saint Donna or whatever the heck that thing was, and so that's why I wouldn't really have a problem with him writing those Riverside letters, but without even doing the crime himself. Because we kind of we see that he's fine with that.
He was definitely able, he was definitely willing to take credit for other people's work, and he liked them running in circles. For sure, but Davis is interesting. It really is. I mean, so is this. I always said that if there was a Zodiac non-canonical crime, it was probably the Beach murders. I mean, couple, definitely a bigger guy to drag Bobby, in my opinion. This is a bigger guy. The 22 is interesting. Dragging them, there is something more going on. It's a bigger master plan or a fantasy going on in his mind. There's lots of crimes going on in California in the 60s, the 70s. But this one's different. There's something more going on in his mind. This is not just a violent deal or a jealous boyfriend or a jealous ex-boyfriend going on. There's something more. And remember, there was sniper fire at Lake Berryessa. Before that, I don't remember the months, but people forget that there was sniper fire reported at Berryessa. I think 3 months before the attack.
I had that in my video, but I got it wrong. I said it was before, and I said after, and I was like, so I just took it out. So I'll spoiler alert, I'll get that fact into the Lake Berryessa episode. Maybe I shouldn't have just said that on air, but now you guys know we're going for episode 7. But I mean, that's a whole other thing too. That sniper pattern has really never been like fully. I think me and Drew. I mean, don't know that
I think that was kind of like reported before, and it never really got traction. But people forget that there was sniper fire at Berryessa.
I think Richard has that, obviously in his articles, which his website is a vast encyclopedia of Zodiac research. But if that's another pattern right there, well, then the only places that it fits to are Gaviota and Berryessa as another Gaviota Beach Berryessa parallel. So I mean, I think it fits nicely. I mean, it would be pretty insane for him to be sniping in 63 and then go up to Berryessa and then do it there again in 69 and not get caught both times. But like Drew just said, it was California in the 60s. So
yeah, all kind of crazy. Here's one. This is from Richard's site. It says a rope found at the murder scene had 2 marlin hitches, an uncommon knot. Domingos was the son of Mr. and Mrs. George Domingos, but it does mention that it was printed in the paper in the Santa Barbara newspaper, November 6, 1963, that the rope found had 2 marlin hitches, which is not common, as Richard mentions.
Yeah. Could have just been left in the shack, though. We have no idea. There's clearly like,
yeah, that's true. You don't know, but it is. I don't know.
Probably
I
related.
wonder what else, could have been there. I guess anything could have been left in the shack.
I mean, Gil could have left anything in there that he was using because he collected mussels and beach foods. But just like, the whole Vandenberg thing, like, it's close, but it's also close enough to go buy the ammo up there and then come down here and do the crime, which is far away from the base. So I really don't know what that says. If that says like an active duty Vandenberg man, which is what we loosely, insinuated with my video when I wore the flight suit in the B-roll reenactment, or somebody like Drew's suspect that can get access to the PX. And I want to say Gil was former military, so I don't know if he had that. And I know that they looked at him for swindles as well. Let me share one more thing if I could, Drew. Do this again. Entire screen. I just want to show you guys like some Google Maps.
Yeah, I'll read this while you're looking for that. It says, detectives received a telegram from the Midwest manufacturer of the Winchester brand bullets stating Super X lot, TL21, quantity pack, 40,960 boxes of 50s bullets per box, 50 bullets per box. No idea where shipped. However, Sheriff Webster did find this manufacturer's lot number was sold at the base exchange of the Vandenberg Air Force Base, 30 miles by Crow, northwest of the crime scene. If each ammunition box contained, as the crow flies, if each ammunition box contained 50 bullets, the 4 boxes at the crime scene once contained 200 bullets. If there were partially filled, let's say 50% filled, there could have been approximately 75 bullets in boxes 1, 2, and 3, and some in box 4 before being used. And I stole that from Richard's site.
Yep. Zodiacciphers.com. Can I get that share up, Drew? I want to show you a map.
No, I don't see it.
See the thing there? Do you have to clue?
Oh, wait. No, I don't see it.
You see that third screen where it says my name or that other? I think you got to click that one. Or I don't know how you did it. There you go. All right.
Yeah, there it is.
Can you guys see this?
Cool. You got it now.
Okay, so Sandy was the Zodiac people. Me and Drew were talking to you. Or Sandy is the Domingos Edwards killer people. We're talking to you also. So this is Canada Del Molino here.
Are there actually Sandy believers out there?
Yeah, a lot of them do.
I mean, I'm not serious. Are there?
Google it, Drew. They love him. The Sandy was the Zodiac. I'm like, he's like 170
He ain't the kid in that sketch. Ain't dragging bodies dead weight up that slope.
He's not even doing this one. Never mind any of the canonicals. Brian Hartnell would have stepped on Sandy. You know what I mean?
Oh, easily. So he could have squashed Sandy like a bug.
Exactly. This is Canada Del Molino here, guys, right off the one Blue Star Memorial Highway. And then you can see that like Gaviota State Beach and campground is here. So that's right up but look, the Vern Smith murder location is here. San Miguelito Canyon Road. This is a half-hour drive. This is 30 miles from here. Now, this is Lompoc here, Drew, and you can see Vandenberg. Well, that's the Space Force base, but the Air Force base is right there.
Yeah, there's Vandenberg.
So Lompoc is like, right there. So and the San Miguelito Canyon Road. So that part of the episode
where Vern Smith was murdered.
Yep. That part of episode 4, guys, where I'm standing there like telling you guys the Coleman Reed Sandy story. It's essentially right here. There's this turnout along this road. And we shot kind of right here. So that should be the exact location where Vern's trailer was. It's something I didn't say on camera, but I figured you guys would figure it out. But, dude, Drew, this road, it's basically a one-way canyon road. When you come out of, like,
if somebody else is coming, good luck. They're going the other way.
Yeah, dude. When you come out of downtown Lompoc here, and then you get onto it, and then you drive into the mountains. This is after when you drive through all this. This is all through tunnels that cut through the mountains. There's a massive mountain range right here. You go around it. You come back up here.
The light color.
And you come back up to Vern's trailer. You know what I'm saying? This is a totally isolated canyon road. It's like, it's like Drew says. I mean, it is 2-lane, but I mean, it's basically, it's like very tight. Like on both sides, even this park right here. This park is totally squeezed into the canyon. It's just that right there is like a massive like mountain wall. And same thing for this side. So when we drove down this road, I'm like, okay, here we go. We just had a successful shoot at Gaviota, but I'm like, okay, now I got to go find this Vern Smith location, which literally no person ever has ever put on camera before. Let's see how this goes. So we get up here, and we're just like, damn, we're just going to look for any spot, because basically this whole way down here, we couldn't really pull over. It was just driveways and farmland and people's ranches and such. Like, Bobby's parents, we didn't show his spot either, but it's, somewhere up there in Lompoc. So when you come down here, yeah, it's just so Sandy people, you think that he's the sniper that's down here on June 1st and June 2nd, camping out in the shack, shooting people with the 2022, the 22 long, then with no car unless Coleman and Reed drive him in the Solon Sunbeam. And now we're talking about like pretty much a 3-4 day commute back and forth, drive him back up here or whatever. They go to the diner to meet mom. And then she points out Vern to him. So they follow Vern back to his house place. So why does he stab him, Drew, on June 3rd to take his money?
Because he was out of ammo.
But he left 3 half-filled boxes in the shack.
4 boxes. So that's 200 rounds at minimum.
That's the thing. That's the Sandy theory, people. You believe that he left all his ammo in the shack to come up here and stab Vern Smith in the back
for a few
with
bucks.
A pocket knife. Only, for $20, only to have Coleman and Reed bring him back the next morning or sometime before 4 p.m. and drop him off back here to get his 22 and ammo in the shack to kill Bobby and Linda.
Up with a football player.
Dude, that should just explain that theory for everyone that it's total nonsense. It makes literally no sense. But that just wanted you guys to see.
Release, man, that's strong.
Yep.
I'm sure there's people that try, will go after the press release, but
but
I think I do agree that I'm sure some people maybe try a little too hard to make it as much like Berryessa as they can, and you don't really have to. But if they do have a sighting of Arthur Lee Allen specifically at Gaviota Beach or in Lompoc, where it's confirmed, would be interesting. But if he was at San Luis Obispo, he did go to Cal Poly there for a while.
Yep.
I could see people going from Cal Poly down there to the beach, but it would be interesting if he was familiar with the area either way.
Yeah, I don't know what other him it would be because, Heinz.
I don't either. That's only him. I can only think of Allen.
Toski was like looking at Allen, like Heinz had Kane, but I don't feel like
convinced it was Allen.
Many of the mainstream guys really, really picked up Kane, right? It was always just more of a Heinz thing. And then Lafferty had Grant. I don't really think that went much farther than
all the police
Lafferty,
were Allen guys for the most part.
I don't know what they and then we know that Taylor called him, or was it Armstrong or Taylor, or they called each other. But I believe whoever was working with Baker, Sheriff said it was a strong link to the Z. I thought somewhere when I was sitting by the beach and I read that list, I believe it was like Armstrong or one of the guys called him. And again, there was another connection there. So, okay, here it is. SFPD Inspector Bill Armstrong calls Baker saying that he feels Berryessa and Gaviota are linked. So guys, if you ever I get the way the whole theory comes together in my video was Ross strung together the Zodiac narrative, but please look at my references. It's all experts, even on the actual canonicals.
Yeah, we were talking about that before we started. There's a lot of Zodiac researchers that are on board with this.
Michael Cole tenured.
Michael Cole thinks all the non-cons are him, except for Ray Davis, which is a little odd, but he thinks Bates is Zodiac.
Yeah.
Soren Korsgaard, big believer, I think. What about we were talking about earlier, Quasar? Is he? Yeah. I've read a lot of his stuff, which is so in depth about all the crimes, but does he think that this is Zodiac?
I don't remember what his article lands on. He's got 2 articles on there.
It's really in depth, but I don't think he ever opines on whether he thinks it's
Gaviota revisit. I guess he's a local. I think he's out close to that area, so that's
he's in San Francisco now. But
to get okay. Well, he was obviously doing Zodiac heavy at one point. He got down there and filmed. He got in contact with Leo Janessa. He's, as far as on camera, he's the only person that's ever gone down there other than me. He just shot. He didn't actually go on camera, but he actually filmed the location for you guys. And you know what? I actually used a lot of his videos to trace his steps before I got down there so we could plan out our shots. But those guys that Drew named are all great guys. I definitely want to read Cole's trilogy. But, Armstrong, Baker, Averett, Webster, Carpenter. That's a lot of sheriffs and inspectors and high-ranking detectives. Averett's a PhD. I mean, I hold those guys' opinion with a lot of weight. I think where the skeptics and, you know, Richard, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but where a lot of those people come with the people are doubling too hard down on the Zodiac is because when Baker takes over the case, 70, you know, it's already after Stein and Berryessa. So, you know, people have a, you know, propensity to say that there's this hysteria that after the canonicals, people immediately jumped on Gaviota and glued the two together. But like Drew just said, Carpenter deliberately says that they didn't do that in the press release. He said, look, we're looking at the hard close of the undisclosed evidence, and we're keeping our mind open to both possibilities that it's either the Zodiac.
He wrote that in a good way. He said, we're not doing this
Zodiac.
just to jump on the notoriety of the Zodiac, you know.
That's kind of where I landed on it. I mean, I'd like to see the undisclosed evidence. I would like to ask you know, Baker about those not Baker. Well, I'd love to talk to Baker, but I would like to ask Averett, who I've talked to a little bit, about the footprints. I know he saw the video. It would be great if Drew and I could just talk to him off the record. If we can't go public with it, we would both love to just have the knowledge.
I'd love to know who he is. Yeah, I mean, who's he? I think it could be anyone but Alan, you know.
The only because he was the name that was all up in it. So and again, I don't know if that's a Cheney connection. Drew and I would love to know that. So there's a lot of questions. I would love to,
even if it's Alan, I'd love to know if they could track Alan to the area.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
it's just
it would be good to know. It would be good to know. I mean, let's put it this way, guys. They shut down my FOIA. They literally sent me one email. Like I could send it to Drew after. It's like open case. You get nothing, Ross. Now, what Riverside gave me was a couple very low quality pictures of Sherry in a press release. I would have liked to SB sheriffs to at least send me a press release, but of course I have that old one that I shared with Drew. That you know, that's the ancient copy or whatever. But I think they should update that file. And I mean, dude. 1963, and you guys can't give us anything. It's like, you know, maybe I'll FOIA them again in 2063 in 100 years, guys, if I'm still alive, and maybe they'll give us something on Gaviota Beach. But yeah, I mean, that's.
Did you ever reach out to the? You know I can't remember the guy's name that made the videos on YouTube years ago.
That's Averett. Yeah, that's Averett. Yeah, that's Averett. So if you watch my video, there's an interview with him that he did on the news a while back. There's also a video of Baker talking that Butterfield posted. So my video is the most encompassing thing, guys. Articles, and then check all those links.
The link to that video is in the comment section here.
Bunch of resources. I mean, if anyone
the description of this video.
If anyone else had any random other canonicals or just random video series, I'd be happy to answer them. But we've taken enough of Drew's time here, I think.
No, but a few more things on it though, real quick.
No. Go ahead. So, whatever you got.
Yeah, I mean, like you've never really hard sold this. I mean, it's just I think more, that you studied it more. You went down there like you have with all of them, and never a hard, trying to hard sell if it's Zodiac or not. But anybody can look at this. So this is a heinous. I mean, this is awful. These are two high school sweethearts that were engaged. Yeah. I mean, each of these crimes needs to be solved in of its own, Zodiac or not.
Agreed.
It's just
agreed. That's where I'm at.
Whatever can be done to help further to answers. Even though this was 1963, it's still. I mean, they were.
I would love it.
Heinously killed for no reason. I mean, this is just, just such an awful act to do. Either way, it's just whatever. In my opinion, Zodiac or not. What helps to solve the crime? I mean, what would to find that one piece of information that would help get some answers? Could there be is there anything that could be DNA could be taken from in this case? Now that some of this DNA, like companies like Outram are getting so good at getting this touch DNA, solving all these John and Jane Doe crimes. Could there be something there that they could get it from? I mean, that was preserved from the scene.
Yeah, here's what I want to know. The article says they pulled rocks from the creek with the mixtures of blood and hair from when they were shot and sent them to the Ray Pinker dude for testing, who was supposed to be the expert at the time. And then they said that they found the killer's blood way higher up, 75 feet up. So did they pull the rock with the killer's blood on it and keep that one in evidence? I want to know that. The bindings.
Dried blood, DNA all day long.
The bindings, I want to know, who touched the bindings. Was it just Linda? Did he already have the gloves on? per Averett, the theory is like he already had the gloves on, like Berryessa. So I don't know, but he might have handled them before he put the gloves on when he got there. I mean, that's the thing. Like, just leaning into the Berryessa parallels, and I know people take or leave that though. If I see him coming with pre-cut rope, coming with the boxes in the shack, it's like he was preparing the murder, coming with the gloves on. In my opinion, he probably wore like some sort of hood mask or even just like a bandana, because I honestly, as secluded as the place is, I don't know if he would have just showed bare face, even a young pre-Zodiac, you know, before he's developed the Berryessa Executioner hood and the Mikado, whatever the character, Coco High Executioner character. You know, I think he would have had something primitive, like, you know, the Texarkana Phantom wore that sack on his head, and he was just a total psycho. That guy obviously wasn't preparing his crimes. He was just popping up on people and trying to kill them in the moment.
Which would have a better connection, because it's earlier in '63 to when the Moonlight murders happened in Texarkana, Arkansas. Would have been even closer to it, that he could have been inspired. Obviously, those were couples on lovers' lanes, but I don't know, man. I'm open on it. I think there's things that, you know, I think this is a bigger guy. I just keep going back to dragging that dead weight of Bobby. This is a bigger guy. You know, this isn't
undisclosed evidence.
It's unusual.
People say like, "Oh, Ross, what do you have?" and blah, blah, blah. Like they want me to go solve the case for everybody, which I would love to do, guys. I would just put a nice bow on it and tell you it's Zodiac if we had his DNA, like Drew just said right there. But for me, it's the undisclosed evidence. I think that, like, if you have wing walkers or the same types of same
that
size
would be
of footprints,
huge.
like Drew said, that's promising. There's just, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, for me, I like the Super X, the Western Super X. I think when he goes and does, he doesn't come out and say, "I killed the boy, the football boy, and the girl at the beach in Santa Barbara," right? He doesn't ever come out and say that, but he says there's a hell of a lot more down there. He uses the super Western Super X at Lake Herman Road in the 22. I personally felt that was the call sign to the non-canonicals. He's like, yeah, I'm the Zodiac now, but this is the same guy from Oceanside, Ocean Beach, Gaviota Beach. And that's just my personal theory, guys. If you hate it,
he might have been worried that there could be something there that he left behind, you know, and there might have been a reason if he did it that he didn't want people to know it. You know, there could have been. He could have been worried, like, hey,
like his blood, if he got punched in the face.
I was spotted down there. You know, somebody did know that I was down in that area in '63, whoever they're talking about, Allen or not. And there could have been a reason Zodiac didn't want to, talk about it later. Like, I was down in '63, and that's when I started putting slaves in the afterlife or whatever. You know, he could have been a little too uncomfortable.
The mistakes, and then honestly, like, it seems like Lake Herman, like, he tried to correct the mistakes because he shoots David right away to get rid of him. That's because he has PTSD from when Bobby slapped his face up. But then Betty almost runs again. Like Drew said, then Betty almost runs again. So he almost makes another mistake at Lake Herman. You know, Drew and I are probably like 50-50 at Lake Herman. It's the most likely canonical to not be Zodiac. But I still see the pattern of mistakes from Gaviota Beach. And,
I will say this: if those bindings that had that knot in it, if that was for sure, or they believe that was used in this crime, that heavily would point to a Zodiac for me, because that's the skill set. Obviously, I'm a Cheney guy; he had those skills, but it would heavily point to a Zodiac to me. If you could confirm that those knots were connected to that crime, because the layman doesn't know how to tie a knot like that.
Yeah, it's odd because, like, of course you have Vandenberg there, which is an Air Force base, and I think Drew probably has like the best, if not one of the best, circumstantial cases in the game. But Zodiac seems to have this weird like obsession with nautical, like Navy stuff. So, but that could just be nautical Zodiac navigation, smart enough to be like, I'm a Air Force guy, and I'm going to point everything towards Navy. I'm going to point everything towards nautical. You know, I don't know what, but like, the nautical, navigation, like Drew said, aviation navigation, it's all similar. But I really don't know what to make of that, because, obviously there's some sort of water obsession, but, Drew likes Cheney for Lake Berryessa. And, I really feel that like Gaviota Beach is like a hunting, fishing location, like me and Drew say about the other types of spots. Of course, the shack, well, you got the shack right there. You keep the ammo boxes in it so no one walking by can see them. There's just all these weird little, I don't know. And then you read that press release.
If he did, whoever the murderer was, if he bought it at the PX, you would want to buy a large amount.
100%.
Because you're not going to go there that much, and it would maybe look a little strange if you bought a small amount. You'd want to buy a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, well, if you're a guy that goes there regularly and then you're planning to do illegal activity with the ammunition, all you have to do is buy 2 boxes to learn that the battle packs aren't tagged on the inside. You buy one small one. Okay, that's lot numbered. And then you buy one battle pack. Oh, okay, none of these are lot numbered. After you make 2 purchases, you already learned that for yourself. So it's not rocket science, right?
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to know, because there's got to be people that are still around, even though this was 63, that would know what the protocol was for buying it. If you were an ex-veteran or active, what did you have to show? A military ID? I would just assume a military ID was good enough.
Yeah, that's
what
I was wondering.
Buy it for cash.
Yep, that's what I was wondering. Yeah, exactly. No, I think Drew has that right on. The Vandenberg thing is weird because it's like I said, it's the great place to get the ammo because it's far enough north that it's away from the crime scene. So it's like, you're obviously, if you got it there or you have some affiliation with that base, you're not going to do it on the nearest base, right? The nearest beach right next to the base or closest to the base, because then it's easier to link the two, or it's easier to track you back there, right? But this is like kind of Drew said, it stinks of buying the battle pack there, then bringing it way down to Canada Del Molino and like leaving it there. And then I don't know. I mean, I just think after all this time, they should release something. That press release is from the 70s, and it talks about
at this point, what do you have to lose? I mean, like, you got nothing to lose.
Somebody could, like Drew said, just when Drew was talking earlier, it reminded me of something, that Dr. Rayfield story, when they see the weird dude coming out of Lake Berryessa looking all disheveled and looking like he's climbing uphill, and he looks all awkward, like he's out of shape. Like, a lot of people think that was the Zodiac. Like Drew said, if someone saw a dude like that walking out of Gaviota, Santa Barbara, and they released more information, like a composite sketch or whatever other undisclosed information that they're not evidence that they're not at liberty to discuss, that could jog someone's memory. Like Drew said, oh man, I was driving by the highway June 4th, 1963, and I saw another guy getting into a car. The problem is, Drew, is there's a train there. So like you said, they could have hopped the train out of there, or there's the cattle tunnel. I mean, there's multiple escapes, but hey, anything helps at this point. Like Drew said, like if they could make another announcement.
Pre-cut ropes, the pre-cut ropes, there's planning. There's planning there. Yeah. This one, the gloves. There's a lot of circumstantial stuff for Zodiac. I mean, especially with that press release. Like I said, this is a bigger guy. Little guy ain't telling Bobby. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. 22 is unusual. I mean, it's a common round, but not a common round for murder.
Yeah. At least down there on Gaviota, like when George Gill lived in the shack, he had the 22 rifle, and he used to just like hunt rabbits and small game and sea life. So, I mean, it's kind of understandable to a degree, because if you're the sniper down there and you just have some 22 ammo on your person, like not that much, the rest is in the shack, and you have your rifle, even if you are the sniper that was shooting at random people, if someone comes down there and questions you, no one really has any proof. You could just say, I'm down here hunting. You know what I mean? And then it's like, you have a 22. It's not like you have some automatic like AR-15 or something.
That's a good point. I mean, it's a lot. If you got caught or seen with it, you're like, I'm just shooting varmints.
Yeah. And then apparently, like that Sandy suspect
or
had the rifle on him.
Rifle, like a 30-06, like, wait, there's no bigger game around here. These are only varmints. I mean, why do you have even a more powerful hunting rifle would have been a little odd.
Yeah, 100%. And then the other suspect, Drew, that dude, Robert Lee Bell, he had the scratches on his arms, and he said it was from a puppy. He stole like a 22 rifle and a 22 revolver from a rancher, but he apparently worked at a car wash, and he collected his last paycheck, and he bounced up to, I think, Sacramento. It was like 2 days before Domingos Edwards. So like I told you guys, watch the episode. If you can give me a better local suspect, please let me know, because every person George Gill had an inconclusive lie detector test. He's the guy that built the shack. I know my boy Brian from Zodiac Files, he likes Gill for the suspect, but there's just not enough for me with Gil. And then Robert Lee Bill fizzled out. Sandy obviously fizzled out. I mean, me and Drew just went through the whole map thing with you guys. Sandy is the most elusive commuter killer in all of American history.
Sandy's a long shot. Julius asks, what are the similarities between Sherry Joe Bates and these two? There was a military footprint at the Bates murder. It wasn't what was the shoe print at Bates?
BMF Goodrich.
But it wasn't a wing walker, right?
No, it's BMF Goodrich. I think they just have the soul. I don't know if they know.
Was there a size of that? Was it a 9 or something? I don't remember.
It was smaller. It was definitely. It's probably in my episode 3. Sorry, guys, 9. My brain's mush. It's smaller though. That dude is smaller.
10.5 at Berryessa.
That dude's smaller too. It's like the 7-inch watch band, like we said with Nikki on our Riverside episode.
Yeah.
So
I don't think there were knots at Berryessa. Vince is asking you. There was. I don't think there were knots at Berryessa. So. The Berryessa bindings were plastic.
Yeah, Gaviota was cotton based. I think that's the difference. This was cotton based bindings. That was plastic. Was it a nylon?
Yeah, Berryessa were plastic, but they were pre-cut, and
I kept calling the Gaviota Beaches old type clothesline, but I think I messed that up from the Tapatalk forum. I think it's the other way around. I think the old type clothesline was Berryessa. Either way, I'll correct it for you guys on episode 7. But yeah, I mean, that's, like the internet, when they go crazy and say like Sandy, the Zodiac, I'm like, dude, you're saying that this dude put 50 to 70 pounds on from 63 to 69. You're just like, he's still short. Like he has blonde. I don't know. So you're basically saying he changed his haircut and then became the Stein killer. If you believe Sandy's the Zodiac, it doesn't make any sense, to me.
No, it doesn't.
And even
I don't know. I'm open for this being Zodiac for sure. And Davis, Davis is hard to shake. I mean, so is this for a lot of reasons.
Well, this is the Berryessa callback, and Davis is the Stein callback. I believe that's
Stein callback. Yeah, I mean, and especially if they, that press release is hard to deny. I mean, he was convinced of it. I mean,
yeah. So
and maybe there's something that they know.
Phone call after Davis, or before and after. Rumored phone call after Riverside. At least that's what the confession letter says. Phone call after Blue Rock Springs. Phone call after Napa. I mean, that's the phone call pattern. Quite a few of them, So, but Riverside parallels. It's not too many. Just a female victim, and I don't know. I mean, knife. It's not. You could say maybe the Vern being a knife crime and Sherry being a knife crime. The only other knife crime is Berryessa.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what they know? But he is interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I know Paul said earlier that Alan. Maybe Alan was there in the late 50s at San Luis Obispo, but he was. I don't know. Somebody knew the area either way, but I'd love to know who he is, because if they can place anybody known to the case in the area that year is interesting enough. I mean, that
would be the first we've ever heard about like a Santa Barbara Zodiac suspect, right? Because they, people who like Ross Sullivan, he goes up to like Santa Cruz, but that's, Santa Cruz. I mean, I guess that's the general. Yeah, that's the general. But this is also 3 years before 66, before we ever hear about Sullivan. Yeah. So if he's in Riverside in 66, why would he be in, Santa Barbara in 63? So I mean, hey, if you guys have better solid suspects, let me and Drew know. But I go down the line.
I'm open. I'm open.
I go down the line of them.
If this is Zodiac or not, definitely. Yeah. The hope is if one of these non-canonical crimes is Zodiac, maybe he makes a mistake. Maybe there's DNA from it. Because if they got DNA and it hit on a known suspect or anybody let's say it's a non-known suspect, but he was, we could trace him to Vallejo. Well, then this guy's going to come front and center really fast.
100%. That's the whole mythos of my entire series is basically that. Like, I looked at the canonicals and I'm like, okay, well, basically nothing came up, at least nothing that's trackable, like Drew said. So I'm like, let's take another look at these non-cons and see if any of it pans out. And guys, nothing would make me happier. Hey, if I'm wrong on every single one and they're just completely randoms, or I don't know. I mean, it would seem likely to me that you might have like the same even if it's not the Zodiac, like Drew said, you might have the same suspect for Oceanside and Ocean Beach, or even, either of those two with Gaviota Beach. So I would assume to see some correlation, but if it's just three completely random crimes that just happen to parallel the later on canonicals in the same state, even though two different regions, it's a little bit like, coincidental for me. But hey, like Drew said, just to have them knocked off the list, I would be happy to go make update videos for you guys if it gets, they solve it, any of them,
Yeah, like Donna Lass, they finally identified her skull. Yep. It was not really where the Pines card said. So that was probably just another a misdirection.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. So, and again, maybe those ones are easier because they're random misdirections as opposed to Oceanside, Ocean Beach, Gaviota, where there's a kind of a closer link, like me and Drew was saying. So yeah, he's not really going to shine as much of a light on those ones. Anyway, what's getting him the press is doing the Bay Area murders, writing the letters, the cards and the ciphers,
creating the whole
persona.
Mythos, the whole persona of the Zodiac. I'm collecting the slaves now, and what suited him at the time.
Yep, all of that is what's driving the zeitgeist. So there's no point for him to say the cab driver back in Oceanside, or the couple on Ocean Beach, or the couple in Santa Barbara. And then like Drew said, also, if there's possible mistakes, well, yeah, there's no way. He's just going to say there's a hell of a lot more down there. Why would you give any more information when you haven't been caught for the more recent murders to have them go back and, and he didn't have really a problem when they were looking into Riverside, at least, because they didn't really come up with anything concrete, Yeah.
So let's say they know something. Let's say that they have something that's really compelling that would convince even a lot of naysayers, like, yeah, this was Zodiac. Or this definitely had to be the same guy as Berryessa or Stein. That would it definitely opens up so many possibilities. You have more of a traveler here because this is pretty good distance away from the North Bay area. Yeah. It definitely opens up the possibilities. Like if Ray Davis turned out to be Zodiac, man, he's all the way down in Oceanside, all the way back up to Northern California. It definitely helps you hone in more on who Zodiac could have been.
Opens up the range. It's, and we always talk about the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders. And, while I don't think that's the Zodiac, or I have no idea, it's almost like, me and Ned did that whole episode about the Texarkana and Jack the Ripper influence on Zodiac. It's like in the case of Jack the Ripper, you had his 4 canonicals, but the Whitechapel murders, that police report, it's actually like 11 murders. And then you got the torso killer. He's the dude that was like leaving headless and armless torsos in the gutters right around Jack the Ripper's territory. So you do have these kind of serial killers that kind of have these hunting grounds that are almost right on top of each other, which further convolutes things. But one thing I would say is, if I'm right about this Southern California connection, is there's this rumored last unreleased Zodiac letter. They call it like the DMV letter, where he's complaining about the DMV or whatever. And they have these several references to Sacramento. Do you have your goat scream, Drew, or is it at the house?
I don't have it with me because I'm remote.
I got you. Well,
explain the DMV letter, because that a lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah, code word Goat Scream for Drew's channel told me that there's like 3 letters with references to Sacramento. So one thing I couldn't help but thinking of is like the post-canonical stuff Drew posted at the beginning of the episode, being Lass and John's, whatever. If you want to put, what was his name? Daniel Williamson, the teacher. If you want to throw in the baseball card thing and all that later on weird stuff, Drew, is like the Sacramento highway murders. I could certainly see like a Ned has floated this theory before, like an older Zodiac going up north to Sacramento and then maybe having some later activity there after the canonicals. You know what I'm saying? Like a whole nother, like we have the Southern, my pre-canonicals, then we have the canonicals, and then if there's something like the Sacramento highway murders, so there is others that I haven't covered in my series. Of course, there's the Molina Rodriguez in 67. That's kind of like the transitionary one after Riverside to the actual canonicals. Just kind of another pre-canonical. But yeah, I'm not gonna, if there's someone else out there that wants to cover those other ones and they wanted my input, producing wise or otherwise.
It needs it.
Yeah. I would help people out. I'm not going to do it myself.
The Santa
but
Rosa murders. I know they had. I think they did have some DNA from one. I don't know what's taken so long. If you could, that could open up so many things. Was it Fred Manali? I mean, he'd be my suspect. Definitely for Kim Allen. And it's interesting that he could have a tie to Zodiac. I mean, because Fred Manali's phrasings are so similar to Zodiac.
Yeah.
I don't think he's Zodiac. He's very tall, very thin, but Manali's just a character I can't get rid of. He's
the Asian
workers. It could be he could be a tie-in to who knows what.
Right, correct. Yeah, the Asian characters, in like the
symbols,
the end of The Exorcist, like the barrel that Kim had. And again, I don't know if that's just. I mean, would they have published that in articles? Could he have just picked that up like secondary source? I don't know, but like much like what people think, what Richard's articles insinuate for Riverside, which is he just picked up everything that they posted in the True Detective magazine, and then he kind of regurgitated it with the twitch and squirm and all that stuff. But like Drew was saying with Manali, I floated it to Drew before. Like my scenario for that would be like a letter writing team. I mean, I could still only have one Zodiac doing the murders, and then Alan and Manali or whoever of these people.
Maybe those guys knew each other. I mean, obviously Arthur Lee Allen had one of his trailers in Santa Rosa. Manali was definitely a creepy, weird guy, creative writing teacher. He probably wouldn't have been a cipher type guy, but man, the Manali's phrasings are he said "I shall." He wrote "I shall" a lot in his writing. He would always write "I shall" and whatchamacallit, you would use that Zodiac used.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say for pound writing, Manali's the best match to the Zodiac letters.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this stuff, but one thing I would wonder, Drew, is like if they could have some pen pal group where they could send each other stuff like anonymously. I don't know how that would work in 63, guys. You got to keep in mind, like in 95, I was 10 years old. So all that stuff is before my time. But if there's some way they could have like an anonymous pen pal writing thing where Manali is sending Alan, correspondence and developing the letters that way, to attempt to, protect their identity, or just doing it and knowing each other, either way,
or just or being familiar with his writing somehow, or I don't know. There's just got to be some kind of DNA that now that it's getting so good with Othram and Parabon and these that they're getting these really degraded samples and multiplying them and getting hits on the DNA. There's got to be something, hopefully, with a case like this, because I don't think we have that in Zodiac, unfortunately. So can we get that for Santa Rosa? Can we get that for Domingos and Edwards? Because was there something left? And if it does hit on a Manali or an Allen or a whoever, and then suddenly the puzzle comes together.
Yeah, I just want to, like Drew was saying, guys, I just want to knock them off the list. If what I bring to the game is that they can go back and knock off Davis, knock off Swindles, knock off Domingos Edwards, and I'll be happy. I mean, I don't think Smith had anything to do with anything other than the fact that it occurred within a 45-minute radius and the night before. Yeah. I really don't think there's any connection other than that, because we would have to do a lot more to put Coleman and Reed down there on the beach and get Sandy down there, which, he has the rifle, but then he stabs the dude with the knife. None of it really tracks. People that are like,
he's described as a little guy, no matter who he is. If he's the guy in that, he's a little guy. That little guy ain't dragging Bobby anywhere. I mean,
this is what the internet does. They go, well, Sandy was never seen again, so I figured it out. Sandy's the Zodiac. It's like, he doesn't track for anything to do with the canonicals. We can't even put him down there at Gaviota Beach, and technically,
much less Vallejo or
No, and what I was just coming to, technically, we can't put him at Lompoc because those dudes said they were with him, but no one else, other than the kid's mom, she saw him before the crime, but we can't put him at that crime scene. That's the problem. We can't put him at that crime scene. Then they drop him off.
We don't even know who Sandy is, so we never had a last name for the guy or these 6 Sandys.
Unless it's William Carr or Bob Kaufman, and if either of those names were real, you would have figured they would have found something on him. So you know what I mean?
But, we could definitely get Sandy off the list. I think.
Yeah, that's my whole thing, guys. I know I did a whole big grand announcement about like, hey, I'm Ross Geraci and I'm discounting Sandy, but even though that was just one of the suspects, like me and Drew said, I still think even if that was the real kid, I don't know if he would have told the detectives, oh, yeah, I was there for that murder. But, dude, trust me, I totally sat back while they were stabbing him. Even if Do you guys know what the like statute on that? I know Drew probably knows it. If you are on a site and you witness a murder like that and you don't report it, you're still an accessory. So there would be no like incentive for him to like admit to being there and not taking part. And they gave him money after too. So, well, they gave me $20, officer. So I totally had to keep my mouth shut.
From the murder, the poor guy.
None of that makes any sense. So, like, in my opinion, I still think Sandy totally out for Domingos Edwards and probably out for Smith too, if unless they ever come up with anything definitive on him, you know, other than those articles of questioning some 16-year-old kid and clearing him, you know, which is what the newspaper said. So, but there's some good articles out there, guys. Definitely the big thing, if you guys want to help out, just like and share the episode if you haven't. The YouTube algorithm is not what it used to be. And subscribe if you haven't.
It's a strange deal, but yeah, check it out. Check out Ross's video. Great drone work. Great, you know, the graphics. I love the way you do it. How you have the Tim Holt death wheel spinning.
Yep,
that's so cool, man. I love that.
That was my idea. You guys would be so mad at us if you knew how long those intros edits take when I give Gabe that stuff to do. And he's like, you want to do what? I mean, that part was fast, but
that's got to take time because it's so cool. It's not unnoticed. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's all Gabe. That's shout out to Gabe, my editor. He's the drone operator. Shout out to the dude who did the black and white Lake Berryessa animation intro. That dude's name is.
And your voiceovers are good, man. I've seen some people go after you for that. Are you kidding me? Your voiceovers are great, man.
Oh, they're gonna get better. We're gonna improve those in the canonicals.
I think they're great.
We'll be doing more in-depth stuff. But I think Nicola Lopez is the dude who did the animated thing at Lopnix on Instagram. I think his name. He's got,
great work. All of it.
Yeah. No, that guy, the black and white thing he did of the Berryessa.
Yeah. That's costume. So cool.
Yeah, that was epic too. So of course the Patreon lives, guys. If you really like the content, you can become a member of the channel. But that's the best way to support it at this point. But I'll be reporting back to Drew if anything new comes up. I mean, that's like I said, that's basically all I'm going to be looking into for the pre-canonicals.
No, it's so cool that you're my non-con guy, and you did the Vanished, because you're my non-con go-to, because it's so cool that you picked up on these to really, because plenty of people have done Berryessa, Blue Rock, but you really did these deep dives. I mean, you're in San Diego, so you're able to go to Oceanside. You're able to go up to the Gaviota Beach and cover all that, which is great. That was like staying on these, because that's where some of some unfound stuff can still be.
Yep, that was my whole thing. Yeah, it was like about 3.5 hour drive for us up to Santa Barbara. So me and Gabe in his car with all the drones and cameras and hiking everything down to that beach. Yeah, it's not as fun as it sounds.
That's a labor of love.
Yeah, bro. Exactly, man. That's, people, it's like you guys see a 20-30 minute episode, but Drew's seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff I posted.
Hours of editing
the shoots are 10 hours, just
filming, gas and food and money and yeah. So yeah, definitely help it out. Patreon over Planet X Filmworks to be bringing these awesome videos. And of course, the Sherry Joe Bates video just totally blew up when you did it. That hit the right algorithm, and people were sharing that video. And I mean, I don't know, you got like 50,000 or something on it. Like amazing.
Yeah, it's like 30K. It's not bad.
Yeah, that's still huge.
More on this one. Yeah. No, it's something good. Of course, you guys can become a member if you want a paid subscription to the channel as well. So anybody who is looking to do that, please go ahead. But of course, subscribe to Drew's channel always. He's got the break of stuff here. I mean, that's basically the whole point of the whole thing. I mean, I tried to FOIA. I tried to get you guys like the more behind the scenes info. I reached out to Baker. I reached out to everyone who would know, but law enforcement just doesn't want to talk about the canonicals or the non-canonicals. And so I just got to keep the series moving,
Riverside, guys. Same thing. They don't want to talk. I mean, they think they know something, and I get it. They have their reasons to keep stuff close to the vest, even though these have been over 50 years now. Maybe they have their reasons. If something ever does come up, they'll know, and they're still holding it to themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if they ever did come up with like Drew said, a very strong link to the Chronicles, I would expect it to be this one. But guys, I gotta keep the series moving. So episode 5, hopefully we're gonna try to shoot 5 and 6 in the same shoot, and then we'll be able to drop them a little bit earlier for you guys. But like I said, Drew's point stands. If I could just knock off every one and they got solved and it were just random cold cases that had nothing to do with Zodiac, then hey, I cleared up the path for the canonicals, right?
Yeah, we got more. We have less to worry about.
Yeah. Yep. Narrow it down. That's all we're trying to do here, folks. So yeah, I kind of landed on my prime suspect pretty hard on episode 4, but like I said, we were just looking for a transition, so you guys should know where we're going next.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on, and everybody go check it out. Planet X Filmworks, and link to his video on this case is in there. Take it over to Ross's channel and sub that, and look forward to more content coming.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, Drew. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, if I get any more updates on anything interesting, I'll be sure to send it over to Drew.
Cool, man. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody that was in the live tonight. If you have any questions, put them in when this video loads to YouTube. If you have any specific questions for Ross, maybe even Richard or Drewzer can weigh in on anything with this case, and that'll be the best way to get them answered. If I missed you in the live tonight, there was a lot of comments and a lot of stuff I probably didn't get a chance to put up on the screen. So if we missed anything, just put it in the regular comment section when this uploads. So yeah, everybody have a great week. Thanks again, Ross.
Thank you, Drew. Shout out to all the Druids, the Drewites. Get Drew's book on Amazon as always.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you guys.